Hi my beauties, welcome to my YouTube channel. If you're a new subscriber, you're welcome, and if you're a returning subscriber, you are also welcome. Today I'm going to be showing you how I achieved that matte pink eyeshadow and also how to achieve nude lips. First, I'm going to be cleaning my client's face with my wipes just to get rid of any dirt that is there before I put in the makeup. Next, I'm going to be using the Garnier Micellar water, and I'm going to make use of a cotton pad to put that on her face just to wipe away, just to cleanse any other dirt that the wipes did not remove. Afterwards, I'm going to be using my Zaron Serum for her face. You know, your model's face, you don't just put makeup, you don't just slap makeup there. You have to use some products that will help their skin to be better, to glow. Even when they remove the makeup, the skin will still be soft and baby-like. So I'm using the serum now on her face. I'm just going to use a brush first of all to put the serum. Afterwards, I'm going to use my hands to rub it in very well so that it enters her skin. Next, I'll be using the MsMetics Moisture Bomb to moisturize our face. I'm going to apply it first with a brush, then I'll use my fingers to rub it in gently into our face, and afterwards you guys will be able to see that our face will start glowing. Our face will be looking dewy, it's not going to be looking dry anymore. And you have to apply the moisturizer very well on your model's face. You have to put it especially underneath her eyes and rub it in gently. Now I'll be using the Pond's Oil Control on her face, but I'm only going to be using it on her T-zone, that is from her forehead down to her nose and then her chin, just to control any oil that might want to break forth on her face. Afterwards, I'll be using the Kiss Beauty Oil-Free Primer on her face. I'm going to be using it on all the places where I didn't put the Pond's Oil Control. Now I'm going to be using the Mehron Skin Prep on her T-zone alone. I'm going to be using a cotton pad to put it on, and now I'm going to be using the classic primer. It's a matte primer. I'll be using it on her eyebrows. I'm going to be using it all over her face, just to mattify her face. And now I'm using the LA Girl Pro Setting Spray to set everything so that everything melts together. Next, I'll be making use of the BB Baby Skin foundation. I'm sorry, I can't remember the shade it's in. Yeah, but I'll put everything in the description box below. So I'm going to be using that on her skin. I'll be using a brush to apply it, and then afterwards I'll be going in with a beauty blender to blend everything into her face. You have to be careful to use a shade that is your model's, that is very close to your model's complexion, so that her face is not looking whitish or is not looking darker than it should. Now I'm going to be using this Ushas concealer palette in that dark shade. It's not too dark, it's a concealer shade, which is a shade or two shades lighter than your foundation. That's what your concealer shade should be. So I'm going to be using that on her chin, on her cupid's bow, on her forehead, the bridge of her nose, the tip of her nose. I'm going to be using that at the corners of her eyes. I'll be using a brush to apply that. Then I'm going in with the beauty blender, the same beauty blender I used for the foundation, so that the dark shade of the foundation will make the concealer not to be so bright on her face. I'm going to be using that to blend everything in. Then afterwards, I'll be going in with 2 shades of concealer on just the inner corners of her eyes. I'll be showing you that shortly. I've already mixed it beforehand, so I'll be showing you the 2 shades and how I applied it on her face. The concealer on her chin, her cupid's bow and her forehead is the remaining concealer that was on the brush, so I just put that on her face. Now I'm going to be using those 2 shades I showed, those 2 shades that were on the screen that I pointed to. I'm going to be using that underneath her eyes to brighten that place up. You need the underneath of the eyes to look a little bit brighter so that it comes out very well in the camera. I used a beauty blender to blend the concealer into her face, and now I'm going to be contouring her face with 2 foundations. I used the original foundation that is on her face and a foundation that is 2 shades darker than her color. I'm going to be using those 2 to contour her face. I mix them together, and now I'm going to be using a brush to apply them on her face. Next guys, I'm going to be using the Smart Lip Palette by Spice. I'm going to be using those 2 colors as a cream blush. I'll be putting that on the apples of her cheeks, so you have to tell your model to smile so that the apples of her cheeks will come out and you'll be able to apply the cream blush very well. Next, I'm going to be using a beauty blender to blend that in very well, and afterwards I'm going to be using a brush to blend in the cream contour I put on her nose. You don't want any harsh lines, so you have to use a brush or a beauty blender to blend it in very well. Next, I'm going to be using the Garnier setting powder to set her face. Afterwards, I'll be using that shade of contour on every part where I put the cream contour. Now I'm going to be using this blush palette. I cannot remember the name. I'm going to be using that shade where I put the cream blush. So you tell your model to smile again so that the apples of her cheeks will come out and you can apply the powder blush to set the cream blush that you've applied earlier. Now I'm going to be using that same shade to contour her nose. I'm going to be using a small brush this time for her nose. Next, I'm going to be going in with a beauty blender to blend everything in so that there are no harsh lines at all. Afterwards, I'm going to be using that powder shade from the Juvia's Place palette for a reverse contour. I'm also going to be using that same powder shade to set underneath of her eye so that it looks a little bit brighter, and I'm going to be using it on the bridge of her nose just in case the powder contour that I applied has affected the bridge of her nose, where I put a concealer beforehand and where I set with the setting powder. So I'm going to be using that same powder shade just to brighten up the bridge of her nose a little. For our brows, I'm going to start by brushing it upwards with a spoolie. I'm going to dip the spoolie in hair wax. You can use any hair wax that is available to you. I'm going to be brushing our brows upwards with a spoolie. Then I'm going to set the brows so that the hair wax is not showing so much. I'm going to set the brows with a powder shade. I'm going to use a beauty blender to just put the powder lightly on our brows. Next, I'm going in with Karité Brown Gel and the Merak brush. It's a precise brush for the brows and for eyeliner. So I'm going to be using this brush to draw out our brows. You have to be light, you have to be very careful when you are drawing it, although if you make any mistakes you can correct it. So I'm just going to use the brush to create hair-like strokes. She already has quite full brows, so I don't need to do so much. I don't need to create so much strokes, so it's just to fill it in slowly. Then I'm going to be going in with my concealer, the same palette I used and the same shade. So I'm going to be using the shade for underneath, for the first part of our brows, and for the tail end of our brows I'm going to be using the same shade, that is a normal shade. And then for the middle, as you'll be able to see, I'm not touching the middle at first. I'm just doing only the front and the tail end. So for the middle, I'm going to use two shades that I mixed together. That's the shade I used for underneath our eyes to brighten them up. I'm going to use those two shades for the middle part of our brows, that's underneath of our brows, with a brush so that that place looks lighter. And when you put your highlighter there, that's the brow bone, when you put your highlighter there, it's going to look all the more bright and it's going to stand out. So now I'm going to be using that. And for your brows, those two shades will make it stand out very well. But for the first part and the last part, for the first side and the last side, you have to use a shade that you can easily blend in so that there are no flashbacks, there are no harsh lines. So I hope you can see it in the video as I'm doing it. Now I'm going to be working on the second brow, and then I'll adjust it so that they look quite alike. I mean, brows cannot look the same exact way, but they should look very similar. For our eyes, I'm going to be starting with that shade from the powder palette. I'm just going to be using that to slowly create a beautiful eyeshadow. I'm going to be using my brush to slightly put that in, and then I will move towards her nose. So you make sure the eyeshadow connects with the contour that you've put so that it looks flawless, it looks seamless, it looks like the contour is coming right from the eyes down. Next, I'm going to be using that shade from the Miss Rose eyeshadow palette. I'm going to be using that shade on her eyes. I'm not putting it exactly on the same place where I put the powder, just a little bit lower and a little bit more towards the middle of her eyelids. That's why I'm going to be putting that shade of eyeshadow. So I'm just blending everything in. I want to be sure that everything is well blended and it's not different colors that are standing out. Now I'm going to be using, at first I wasn't sure which shades I will use for the eyeshadow, but that's why I pointed to the 3. So I wasn't sure which one I will end up using, but I ended up using these 2 shades only, those 2 shades. So I mixed them and then I used that as the main eyeshadow color to create a very beautiful matte pink eyeshadow. Now I'm going in with the Zaron Eyeliner and the same Merak brush. I'm going to be using that to apply the eyeliner. To apply the gel eyeliner on her eyelids. I applied the Avour eyeshadow primer on her eyelids before putting the 2 blush colors that I showed on the screen earlier. Guys, you have to be very careful when you're applying your eyeliner, whether it's gel or it's liquid. Although if you make a mistake, you can still correct it, but it's better to do it gently and slowly and get it right than to rush and then be trying to find a way to fix it. Next, I'll be using the Kiss Beauty Mega Impact mascara on our eyelashes. I fixed the lashes off camera and now I'm going to be using those 2 shades from the Spice Matte Lip Palette. I'm going to be using them on her lips. I've already applied the Karité Brown Gel as a liner for her lips, and next I'm going to be using those 2 shades as a lipstick. Then I will use lip gloss so that everything looks glossy and everything looks good. Now I'm going to be highlighting her face. I'm using highlighter from the Juvia's Place palette. I'm using a small brush for precision, but I'm still going to use a bigger brush to blend everything in properly. I'm using the LA Girl Pro Setting Spray to set her makeup, and afterwards I'll be using the Sooo Pro Select Spray to lock everything in place. It seals the makeup so that it doesn't move, it doesn't shift, it goes nowhere. And here is the finished look. Guys, see that glow, see that smile. Here is how you achieve a matte pink eyeshadow with nude lips and glowing skin. I put a little bit of highlighter on her collarbones and on her chest so that it glows as much as her face is glowing. Thank you so much for watching. Please comment, like and subscribe so that you can see many more videos from me in the future. I apologize for the lighting throughout this video. I had no idea it was fluctuating this much. Thank you for watching once again. See you in my next video. I'll leave you to enjoy the beautiful smile of my model, who is also my elder sister. Take care. Bye, my beauties. Love you.